Welcome to My Vintage Love. Today I am here to bring you a no makeup tutorial that is very natural and that I've used for many years when I've been doing an Edwardian look. It's also great for bridal makeup. So if you're doing your own makeup, this is a look I've used on bridal clients for years, and actually very similar to the makeup I did on myself on my own wedding day. This isn't meant to be a tutorial to show what they would have been doing in the Edwardian age, because they would really have been using much less makeup back then, if any at all. So this is more just a how to look great on camera without wearing a lot of makeup or look like you're wearing a lot of makeup. So come with me as I show you how to get this look. Here we are. I am fresh-faced, well moisturized, and ready to go. And we're just going to start with skin. If your skin looks good, you look good. That's the most important part of any makeup. And I have tried many, many different foundations, and the one that I'm loving at the moment is Lorac Pro Soft Focus Longwear. This one lasts really well on my skin. It stays all day. It tends not to settle as much, so I really do like this one. And I'm just gonna go ahead and put this on the back of my hand. I just do like a pump and a half and go in with my IT Cosmetics brush. This is one of my absolute favorite brushes because you have the foundation on one side and the concealer on the other. I use this on myself. I use it at work. It's just a really, really great brush. So, and I just kind of like start out by stippling it on, because no matter what your skin is like, I think you always want to be applying the minimum amount necessary to get the maximum result, especially with skin. I'm very acne prone, and definitely I'm starting to show a little bit of sun damage, so I need a certain amount of coverage. But if you are one of those lucky people that doesn't need a lot, don't use a lot. Just spot conceal where you need it. If you are going to be photographed, it probably is better to just have a little bit more, a nice thin base all over your face, just to give a nice evenness to it. But on an everyday basis, if you can get away with just spot concealing, do that. And I'm very jealous of you. I'm putting it everywhere, bringing it down the neck just a little bit too, because no one wants that demarcation line. And a note about color matching is don't match to your neck, because your neck is going to automatically be a little bit lighter than the rest of your skin. You really want to match it to your chest or your cheek or your cheek, because you really want these two things to go together. And if you're much, much darker on your chest and much, much lighter on your face, you might need to find a color that's in the middle somewhere. So let's say on a scale of 1 to 10, you're a 1 on your face and a 3 on your chest. You might want to find something that's a 2 for your face, so you can kind of meet those in the middle. And also don't be afraid to change your foundation in the summer. If you tend to get a little bit darker, you might need to change it a shade or a half shade, or put 2 shades together to make sure that your foundation is working for you. So I like to cover the lids and under the eyes. And I just like to get a nice thin layer everywhere, and then whatever isn't covered by the foundation, I go back with the concealer and go ahead and cover that. Okay, so that is the foundation. So I like to just cover the entire face and do a nice thin layer everywhere, and then whatever blemishes or redness isn't covered by the foundation, then I go back with that and cover that with the concealer. So it's foundation first, then concealer. So for concealer, I love, love, love the NARS Radiant Creamy Concealer. Industry standard, super amazing. The texture is beautiful. It stays really well. Great shade range from lighter to me, then darker. I use vanilla, the lighter shade, on my skin where I need to cover up blemishes and things like that. And then I use a slightly warmer shade, honey, a little bit under my eyes to give it a little more warmth, because this helps me counteract the blue, which is actually a really important thing to do. Because as you might have noticed, I have dark circles under my eyes, and that is always my nemesis that I'm trying to cover. So I just go right in there with the vanilla, and I dot it on anywhere I want to cover. And then I dab underneath the eyes. And a little bit on the lid. It helps kind of prime the lid. And then I take the honey And I just put a little tiny bit underneath the eye. Like I said, it really helps to neutralize the blue. You don't want to go too crazy with neutralizing. There's been a bit of a trend in the last few years to kind of like take extreme green to neutralize red or extreme pink to neutralize blue, and you really don't need to do that. It can actually be a lot more subtle than we've been taught recently. So then I just take the concealer end of the IT Cosmetics brush and just start buffing that in. Most people need a little coverage around the nose because we all got a little red there. And I am covering up these lovely blemishes here. I really like this concealer because it's creamy, but it also has quite good coverage and it's very buildable. So if you want to, if an area needs a little more love, you can really give it the love that it needs. And like I said in the intro, this is the makeup that I do on myself when I am going to be doing an Edwardian look or a no makeup natural look, but it's definitely a decent amount of makeup, and I think it's good just to kind of see what kind of makeup goes into a no makeup. And they would not have been wearing such makeup in the Edwardian days for sure. They just didn't have these products, and it just wasn't acceptable for a lady to wear much makeup at all, if any. So this is very much a modern day interpretation of what they would have worn back then. So when you're doing your skin especially, it's always better to have one thin layer or two thin layers rather than one thick heavy layer. So use kind of the minimum amount of foundation and concealer that you need, and then if you need a second layer to cover anything, go in and do a thin second layer. Or two, or three, whatever it takes. And going in with a little tiny bit of concealer around the mouth kind of helps you define that lip line a little bit more too. Okay, so skin looks good. And we're gonna move on to brows. I like to just do a quick brow, not add too much, just give a little more life to the brows. This is a Senna brow pencil, really, really great brow pencil. Senna is a great line for brows in general. So if you need good brow products, they're a great place to go. So I like to brush my brows up, kind of wake them up. And then I brush it down, actually, because I want to see the top part of the brow. And then I go in and kind of fill in the top outer 2/3, I'd say, 3/4, 2/3 at the top, or wherever it needs it. And then I brush the brow back up so I can see that gives that little bit of fullness. And then if I want to lengthen it, I'll lengthen it just a little bit. This is for a very natural brow. I'm not trying to do anything dramatic. And as a general rule, most of us don't need too much fill-in in the inner quarter of our brow, the inner corner, inner quarter of our brow, because most of our brows grow pretty strongly in that area. So it's best to fill out the outer 3/4, 2/3, like I just did, see where you're at, and then decide if you do want to color in anything on the inner corner, because that's when a brow starts to look heavy and Groucho Marxy, and that we would kind of want to stay away from that. I like to keep my brows, for myself and my clients, very natural looking. So if I do go into the inner corner, I'm just barely filling it in, kind of doing stroke by stroke. So you can see that nice, natural, gentle brow, just a little more amped up. I'm going to do the same on the other side. So I have the pencil in my brows. They're nice and full, natural, just a little more oomph to them. And next I'm going to use some brow gel. This is a tinted brow gel from Chanel. You can absolutely use clear gel. I use clear gel as well. I just use the tinted brow gel when I just want a little more something to the brow. If I know I'm going to be photographed, it's just a nice way just to oomph up the brows. And brow gel is great totally on its own too. That's what I do every day if I'm just walking out the door and just want to give my brows a little lift or just a little extra color. If you have very, very, very blonde brows, it's great just to pull some tinted brow gel through them to really max out the hair that you already have that might not be visible without it, even if you don't use any pencil underneath. Okay, so the brows are done. So next I'm going to move on to the eyes. I like to keep the eyes natural, but I really do love the Lorac Pro palette because it has this great blend of nice neutral colors, but they are shimmery and matte, which is a great combination when you're doing a nice natural eye. So, so for this look, I'm going to add a little shimmer to the eye. I'm going to use champagne all over my lid. I like a little shimmer in the eye. You could definitely do this with a matte shadow as well, 100%. I just find that the shimmer just kind of, it just pops a little bit more. I'm just blending it in. And the goal is to be very subtle with this makeup. It's not ever to be like, oh my gosh, look at all the makeup she's wearing. It's just to be like, oh, she looks so lovely and fresh and refreshed and just like she walked out of a painting, really is always kind of my goal when it comes to this kind of makeup. And next we're going to add some subtle contour in the crease of the eye, which tricks the eye of the viewer into thinking that your eye is bigger. And this is something that makeup artists still use all the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the taupe color here. I'm actually going to use taupe and mauve kind of mixed together. You always just want a neutral color for this when you're trying to do a natural makeup like this that's just going to kind of blend in with the eye. Or mimic a shadow is what I should say. You want something that's going to mimic a shadow. So I like to just go in right in the eye and make sure and kind of go into the corner of the eye too. Because what we're trying to visually do is we're trying to make that socket go back visually, which will make the eye bigger because it brings the eye forward. And if you were doing more dramatic makeup, this is absolutely something you could do with a more dramatic color. You could do this with a dark brown, a black, a purple, something that would really force the eye forward. So that's really what you're doing when you're doing this. And what I like to do too is I like to kind of, if you want to keep it really natural, you can just keep it in the socket of the eye like this. But what I like to do, and I've learned this works really well for people with kind of downturned, droopy eyes like me, is to pull the color out just a little bit. And then I take a slightly larger eyeshadow brush and blend that out. So you really shouldn't be seeing any major, it's there, but once the makeup is on and the liner and the lashes especially, the mascara, you really shouldn't see this at all. It should just blend into the eye. So I hope you can see that this eye looks a little bit bigger and this eye still is fine, but just maybe looks a little bit smaller still. So it's all about optical illusions. Makeup is just one big optical illusion, and finding out what works for your face in particular and what gives you the desired result. But if you know why you're doing something, it helps you do it better. Okay, so both eyes have on the eyeshadow, and I'm going to move on to the eyeliner. Liner is something this is a technique that I like to use on almost everyone that I do. It's very subtle and it works really well to create almost like a non-liner liner is what I like to say. So I'm going to use the espresso color from the palette and a nice dark brown. You could certainly use black if you're darker, you want more drama, or even a lighter taupier color if you wanted even less. But what I'm going to do is I'm going in with a brush like this from MAC. It's flat and rectangular, and what I want to do is go in and get as close as I possibly can to the lash line and just press that color into the lash line. And what that's going to do is it's going to create a shadow close to the lash line, and it will make the lashes look thicker, especially once the mascara is on. Of course, any of these steps are completely optional. This is just how I like to do it. And I find that this is just such a good way to give that lid, to give that eye a little bit of lift and really just make it look like you have gorgeous thick lashes. And what I like to do also is take a little brush like this, a pencil brush is what we would call this, and smooth out that and blend out that line that I just created. Because you don't want a hard line for this, you want it to be very soft. You could also do this with a pencil. You could put the pencil on and then blend it out with a brush like this. I find pencils do tend to move around a little bit on me. Or what you could do also is put the powder down and then put the pencil on top if you'd like a little more longevity. So I do like to cover the entire top lid and then blend it out. So you can see, I feel like this is the moment you can really see the difference between the two eyes. So this eye clearly is, my right eye is clearly different than my left eye right now, and you can really see the difference that that makes. So I'm going to go ahead and do the other eye now to make it match. This can take a minute. I find this can actually be one of the more time-consuming parts of the makeup. So if it's taking you a minute, that's fine. The most important thing is just to get it as close to the lash line as you possibly can, and then just give it a nice blend out. And I'm going with Q-tips to clean out underneath. Also totally fine. I've said this in a few of my other videos, like if you need to go in with a Q-tip and clean up, that's fine. Don't worry about it. We all have to do that. Q-tips are amazing for that. A little fallout might happen too. Also totally fine. If you find that you're getting a lot of fallout when you're doing your eyes, feel free to do your eyes first and then come back and do your foundation if that's easier for you. Also totally cool. When I'm doing a really elaborate eye look or a smoky eye look, fallout happens, and I will sometimes do that, do my eyes first and then do the foundation. So it really is a personal thing. Okay, so the eyes are looking pretty good. I'm feeling good about them. And you can kind of see, I hope, that the difference that that liner trick makes. And, you know, if you wanted to go in with liquid liner or pencil or anything over this, that is another option to kind of oomph it up just like to the next level. And next for the eyes is curling the lashes. Curling your lashes is a great thing to do. If I'm not even putting makeup on, I will curl my lashes and brush my eyebrows up just to give my eyes a little bit of openness. And my favorite one right now is Surratt lash curler. And this one is a old Revlon or Schumer, I think actually. So I like to go in there and grab it as close to the lash line as I can and then pump it 5 or 6 times. And I have very blonde lashes despite my brown hair, so you can't really see the difference as much. But if you have dark lashes and you curl your lashes, it just makes a huge difference, and you'll really see the difference once I get the mascara on. Speaking of mascara, my absolute favorite mascara at the moment is Maybelline The Falsies. I love this mascara. I keep coming back to it. I can't quit you. It's so good, and it just does everything I want a mascara to do, and it's a drugstore mascara, so it's $8 or $9, which is just amazing. L'Oreal Voluminous is also a really great mascara from the drugstore. There are some really, really good drugstore mascaras out there. And I just love to start with the root of the lash. It's always where you want the bulk of the color to be, and then just work it out to the end. Another trick that I learned too to get the outer corner lashes is to horizontally hit them like this and then brush them back out. And that will get those little guys at the very ends of your lashes. The corners of your lashes, I should say. I do like to put a little bit on the bottom lashes. I kind of like to use whatever's left over on the wand and go in and just hit those bottom lashes a little bit. Nothing too crazy, and you do want to try and get as close to the lash line as possible. try and keep it away from going all the way to the tips of the bottom lashes, because that can kind of result in dragging the eye down visually a bit. Really just trying to add a little bit of definition to that eye, the bottom of the eye. If you find that you have a lot of issues with transfer and things like that, if it's falling down, you could go ahead and use a waterproof mascara if you are, especially if it's a special event. So mascara's on. I love when the mascara goes on because I feel like that's when the whole makeup comes alive, and that's when I feel my prettiest. And I feel like me once I get the mascara on, because my lashes are very blonde, and if I don't have mascara on, they tend to just disappear. So I really, really enjoy that moment when it goes on. So next on our eyes, last stop actually, is I'm going to do some lashes, and I'm going to use the single tapered flares, short. I love these. I think they look really natural when they're on. I use these on myself all the time. If I'm going to be photographed, I use at least these. And if I'm doing a bride, I put this on almost every bride that I've done. I use these on myself on my wedding day. They're just great, great lashes. You can get these from the drugstore. You can get them from, I think, eyelash.com, and they are just a great lash to use. I get a lot of questions on these when I do them on brides. They will stay on all day. They're not meant to be worn longer than a day. You could probably fudge it, and if you slept very carefully, wear them longer than a day. You're really not meant to. And how you take them off is you just take some, when you're washing your face, you just take a little extra love around your eyes with some makeup remover, and just hold it there a little bit longer, and then they will gently come off. But they will stay on even if you're crying, all that good stuff. So if you're doing this for a wedding or anything, you're worried about tears or a lot of emotion, they will stay on. I've never had anyone have a problem with that, knock on wood. Just dab, don't rub if you're crying is what I say. So the glue is, so this is Kiss Lash Adhesive. Kiss makes a good one, Ardell makes a good one, any one is great. This is the latex free that comes in a little tube like this with the little brush, which I love. And then the regular kind comes in a little squeezy tube. Both are fine, really depends on whatever you like. So what I like to do is I just put that on the back of my hand. And it does dry pretty quickly, so usually just 2 or 3 little dots of it are okay, and you might need to go back and get some more. So these are the lashes, and what you're going to want to do is go in there with your tweezers. Tweezers are really important. Some people can do this without tweezers. I don't know how. I really find that I need tweezers. So we're going to grab our lash, dip it in our glue, just the tip, and then just place it right in the lash line, and then give it a little nudge up if you need to. And then you're just going to keep doing that until you have as many lashes on as you want. And I find, I said tweezers are very handy here. Looking down your nose in the mirror is a really, really good thing. It's very helpful. And they make these in different lengths. I find short works really well for me and most people, but if you want something even more subtle, they have extra short, and if you want something bigger, they have medium and they have long, so it really depends on how much of oomph you want, but there are many different lengths and even thicknesses of these, so you can really customize the lash look that you want with the individuals, which I really do like. And it's really going to depend, the number that you put on is just going to depend on your eye and the look that you want. I'd say I probably end up with an average of 5 to 6 of these little clusters on each eye, but it depends. If you want just a teeny tiny little bit, of drama, you could always just do maybe 3 on your outer corner, just to give the eye a little lift. But these really do look beautiful on camera, and it's the best way to make your eye pop on camera. Even if you did virtually nothing else and had these on, it would look amazing. That's why the lash extensions have become so popular. And if you've never done lashes before, give yourself time. It's going to take a second. It's okay. You do not come out of the womb knowing how to do this. I find personally that the individuals are a little easier to do, but everyone's different. Some people think the strips are easier to do. It's really a personal thing. So you just kind of want to make sure that they're playing nicely together or all going in a similar direction. There's not one that's like tweaking out on its own. If that does happen, reposition it or take it off and put a new one on, start over basically. But I'm pretty happy with how this one's looking. So I hope this is reading that you can kind of see the right eye looking a little bit bigger and brighter than the left eye. And yeah, I think every picture, every video I've done, every picture you've seen of me on Instagram, I have had lashes on. I just like the way I look better with them. And they're very addictive. So once you start using them, you will probably want to keep using them. That's just my experience. So I'm just going to go ahead and do my other eye now. So the lashes are on, and I sometimes get asked about, will the lash glue dry clear? It will dry clear. If you see it while it's on, while it's drying, it might look a little bit white, but give it 5 minutes max and it should disappear. They also make the lash glue in a dark color, so if you're doing a smoky eye or a dark or more extreme look and you don't want to have to worry about the lash glue showing it all, they do make it in a darker tone as well. So it's also something that's really good to know. And as you noticed, I put the mascara on first, and then I put the lashes on, and then I'll go in after and put like a tiny, tiny bit more mascara. That's the technique that I like to do. I know if you want to keep it really, really natural, you could curl your lashes and then put the lashes on and just leave it there. I always think mascara is good to put on with false lashes, but it's really whatever you're most comfortable with. So next I'm going to go on to some contouring. I do really, really light contour. I am not about the Kim Kardashian super, super sculpted look. This is really just to make sure my face doesn't look too round in photos. I find that my face, even at 41, can look a little bit round, and I don't like that. I like to make it look, I like my cheekbones to look a little popped, and also make sure my jaw is sculpted a little bit. So this is the SIIA Duo Face Sculpting Contour Stick. I really like this one because it's very fair. It's very light toned. So for someone like me who's very fair, this is a great color because it's not too dark, it's not orange, and you really want to stay away from those colors if you are fair like me. If you are a deeper skin tone, a darker shade is obviously great, but by and large, you always, no matter what skin tone you are, you always want to stay with a taupe color, with a gray undertone. Don't ever go too warm with it because that's when contour can start to look very, very odd. So I'm going to be using this Smith brush, and I go in there, get just a tiny, tiny bit. And contour is one of those things that if you're just being photographed and it's just for photography or film and it's very sculpted light, you know what the situation's going to be, you can go a little bit heavier with it. But if it's a day-to-day thing, you really want to stay away from going too crazy with it. So I'm just going to go under here. And I start back here and bring the color forward at first. And I'm going for very subtle when I'm doing this. So we have some very subtle cheek contour going on here. And then I'm going to go ahead and put a little bit more on the brush and just go around the perimeter of my jawline just to give a little more shape and definition to the jawline. You should never look like you have Snickers bars on your face. No Snickers bars. We want to stay away from that at all costs. That's just me. But I think we've all, at least in New York, I know that I've seen some girls doing the full Snickers bar contour on the subway, and it can be very jarring in everyday real life. If that's the look you want to rock, absolutely go for it, but just be aware that it's not always going to look so great in real life, and what looks good on Instagram does not necessarily translate to the harsh cold light of day. And next is one of my favorite parts of the makeup, and what I actually think is one of the most important parts of the makeup to really brightening up the face is blush. And I think blush has kind of gotten forgotten in the past few years. I think we've all really gotten into bronzer, and that's fine, but I find that blush is actually better for kind of bringing life back to the face and can really make you look so pretty on camera because you want to mimic that natural flush to the skin that makes us think of youth and all those wonderful things that we associate with blushing and the blushing bride and all those kind of things. So keep that in mind, especially for a more vintage look. Like bronzer really wasn't a thing for a long time, especially if you're doing an Edwardian era look. Anything before the 20s, they were really focused more on just beautiful skin and that, you know, the beautiful English rose pink skin. So keep that in mind. Bronzer was not necessarily a thing. So, or looking bronze was not something that women wanted to be before the 20s at the very earliest. So I'm going to do the blush, and one of my favorite things that I discovered when I was in Seoul 2 years ago, I did a lot of shopping for cosmetics when I was there, which was really fun because K-Beauty is awesome. This product here from Holika, the brand Holika, is called Jelly Dough Blusher, and it's this very interesting texture. It's just like almost like a dry cream, but I just love it. And I love the brightness of this color. I think it's just really fun. And I've been using this a lot on my own. I haven't necessarily used it on many clients yet, but I just think it's fun to kind of like go for the blush. So I just like to kind of gently pop that on the skin. I'm not quite sure what would be similar to this here. Honestly, I think any cream blush would do. I just kind of pop that on with a little pad that it comes with. So I have this kind of funny circles on my cheeks right now. And then what I like to do is, this is an IT Cosmetics blush brush. So I just go in there and kind of buff that out. I definitely like an apple of the cheek, kind of flush to the cheeks. Just kind of work that out. Kind of blended that blush out. I do kind of like to do the apples of the keep the bulk of it on the apples of the cheeks. So after I've completed the cream blush, I like to go in with a powder blush, and this is Julie Hewett Bud of Roses. I've used this in a few different other tutorials that I've done. It's just a really pretty pink. Any color that you like is great. And I just kind of very gently tap on a little bit more. And what I like to do too is I kind of like to go under the eyes a little bit with the blush, just to kind of make sure there's no hard demarcation lines, and just to kind of tie it all together. I'm just doing this with whatever's left over on the brush. Okay. So, pretty blush. I hope you can see that it just kind of like livens up the whole face. It really looks really pretty on camera too. I've noticed that when I wear a little more blush, I always look a little more lively on camera. So last but certainly not least, for the face, I'm going to do highlighter, and I love cream highlighter, and I'm going to be using Benefit's What's Up, and this is the travel size version of it, and it's just a great cream highlighter. And it's very tiny because I said it's the travel size, but I just like to go in there with my finger. And I do a little on the lid. And then I do a tiny, I'm actually going to use a brush to put a teeny tiny little bit in the corner of my eye. And this is definitely an extra step, but it really kind of brings the makeup alive on camera. It's one of those things that we do when I'm doing Fashion Week. We do this a lot on the models. We always put highlighter in these spots just to kind of make them look alive. Because even with a natural makeup, you still want to be mimicking, you know, that natural radiance of youth. And then this area here, I kind of go up the brow bone and the C shape around your cheek here. You can definitely do this with a brush. I'm just doing this with my finger. And just make sure it's really well blended in, because you don't want any kind of hard lines with your highlight or your contour. And I just do a little teeny bit. very top of the lip here. A little tiny bit on the chin. All right. Looking good, I think. I'm just gonna do, as I mentioned before, I'm gonna go back and do a teeny tiny little bit more mascara at the root of the lashes, just to kind of marry together my real lashes with the fake lashes. Again, totally optional step, but I do find that it kind of helps. It just helps the whole lash look to my eye. And I noticed that when I put the blush on, some of the concealer kind of went awry, so I'm just gonna go back in there and just conceal those little places that need a little more love again. Just go in there a tiny, tiny bit. Oops. More than I need. So I'm gonna do a little powder on myself and some lips, and then we'll be all set. I'm gonna be using a translucent powder from Chanel. Any translucent powder will do. I like to use kind of whatever I have on hand at the time. I use a big brush, go in there, and I kind of like to keep it more in the center of the face because that's where we get shiny, the T-zone, and I want to keep the luminescence around the perimeter of my face. You can certainly also use a puff or a much smaller brush for this. When I'm on set, I actually tend to use a smaller brush on models because I really want to choose where the powder is going to go. I do use a slightly bigger brush on myself. So you can see, and I just like to do a little swipe under the eyes because you want a little bit of staying power under the eyes, but you don't want to go too crazy with powder under the eyes, especially if you're a little older, because you don't want things to settle, but you also you won't want them to stay too creamy, so they'll be moving around and settling into fine lines. So a smidge of powder in the eyes is okay, but not too much. And final step is the lips, of course, and I'm going to be using the Julie Hewett Camellia Ruby Lip Balm. I've used this on a few different tutorials that I've done before, and it's just such a pretty color. It's gorgeous, and it just gives a nice flush of color to the cheeks. So if you're doing a look like this and you really want this would be probably the most makeup they would have worn back in the Edwardian days, like a tiny, tiny bit of color on the lips. It's not a lot, it's just a flush, and it's just really nice. Just to give a little bit of color. And if you wanted to do a red lip, a full-on red lip with this look, absolutely, that would be beautiful. It would just give it a whole different finish and a whole different look. Because lipstick can really change a whole look, as we know. I am doing this straight out of the tube. Of course, if you wanted to use a lip brush, absolutely, that would be a great thing to do. I just like to, when I'm doing it myself, I tend to just use it straight out of the tube. So here's the final look. I put on an Edwardian gown so you can see the makeup and the hair with it. I really hope you enjoyed this and learned something for your everyday makeup and/or your special occasion makeup. This has served me well for many years, and I hope it does you too. Please subscribe below if you haven't already, and follow us on Instagram at MyVintageLoveBlog for even more regular updates. And please comment below and tell us some videos you'd like to see us make in the future. We'll see you at the next one. Bye.